Chapter 42. Once again into the abyss. Normally, when the rumble of Marcus's Countach coming up their driveway signaled his triumphant return, Jordan would emerge to offer an inebriated welcome. Today was different. There was no greeting. Marcus paused as he shut the garage and weighed his options. Going into the house would lead to another fight, Marcus thought, and he wouldn't be able to resist rubbing it in Jordan's face that the world hadn't ended. After listing the pros and cons, Marcus headed for the lab instead. "Not your moneymaker!" Brad jumped from behind his desk. "It looks worse than it is," Marcus grumbled. Brad silently inspected the damage. "I got schooled at Nereo. That's a side effect of fighting. I'll be fine. You know I can read subtext, right? You don't seem fine. Can we talk about my quota?" Marcus plopped onto a couch. "I never thought this day would come." Brad sat across from him. "You really waited until the last chance to finally settle up." "What do you mean?" "With Project Noble's first milestone coming to an end, my work will be finished. The lab will no longer be needed." "No!" Marcus wailed. Brad smirked. "If there's no lab, then there's no cohort. If there's no cohort, there are no experiments, which means there's no more tech." "No new tech," Brad emphasized. "How will this affect the units that already exist?" "They'll keep working." "What does that mean for TechMart?" "Not a great time to invest. Every business your firm has ever built eventually comes to an end. It's called the product life cycle. It's a cold economic fact, and TechMart is headed for their death phase." "Why didn't you point this out at the press conference?" Brad bust a gut, adding, "Because no one asked." "How much tech can I get for all my past work?" "Like I said before, only you can tell me what you're worth. Name your price." Marcus's mind raced through the options. How many people are alive right now, roughly? 8 billion, give or take. I'd like 18 billion units then. But I want you to give them all to Monica, and make sure she knows they're from me, please? "Signed, sealed, and delivered," Brad declared. "Thanks. One more thing. With whatever time we have remaining, I don't want to overlap with her in the lab anymore. Is that a problem?" "I try to stay out of affairs of the heart. You two need to play nice and work out a schedule for yourselves." "Is she here now?" Marcus's eyes darted around the room. "No. And I don't expect that she'll come in today. It's still going to be a madhouse, though. Diksha and ComCenter are in the Liberty Bell now. Brian, Doigu, and Tony are on their way in, plus you're here." "Does the rest of the cohort know we're an endangered species?" "That's a pessimistic way of looking at things." Brad frowned. "I've had conversations with the ones who've asked. They know that once my research ends, they won't be needed in this capacity anymore, but I'm confident most of you will be offered a spot in the Agoge. It's the logical next step for your personal progress, and it'll leverage your skills to help reach M2. "I'm all in," Marcus asserted. "Where do I sign?" "You sure?" Brad leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "Can we back up and talk about the subtext you dismissed earlier?" "Okay," Marcus conceded. "The first time we met, I told you that keeping up with your normal life was part of the agreement. That wasn't an arbitrary ask. You're only effective to my research, and by extension to the needs of the Agoge and your form's continued integration, if you're free from distractions, especially emotional ones. So I need to ask you an important question. How's the rest of your life going at the moment?" "Honestly, not very good," Marcus admitted. "How detailed do you need me to be?" "The too long didn't read version will do. We're working against the clock today." "Everything is unstable right now? I keep facing the same trade-off, the same choice between what I want to accomplish by working with the Federation and everyone else's needs. I make choices I feel confident in, but then my relationships run into a wall. Anthony is the only person who isn't upset at me right now, you excluded." "I will always have your back," Brad assured. On second thought, unstable might be the wrong word. Irreparable is probably better. From where I'm sitting, I don't see a path back to how things have been with everyone else in my life. "From where I'm sitting," Brad echoed. "I think that's true." "Sempre avanti," Brad smiled. "Always forward. This doesn't disqualify me, does it? Can you fulfill your duties to the cohort, despite the instability of your personal life?" "I think so." "Thinking isn't knowing." "I'm anxious. It's been worse the last few days." "Is it being driven by your recent drama?" "It's probably the other way around. The anxiety is there in the background, making it easier to set me off." I'll leave the choice to you. But you should be certain. If you know your present emotional state will compromise your effectiveness in the cohort, let's shake hands, and I'll send you home with an imaginary gold watch for all your service. If instead you know you're capable of continuing, then I'm here to help conquer the anxiety so you can get right back to work. I can conquer this. Describe how you feel, Brad probed. It starts as a general uneasiness, like I'm forgetting to do something. Then my stomach starts to hurt like I ate something bad. My heart races, my chest gets tight to the point of feeling like it's being crushed, and the ringing in my ears comes and goes. So it's like your post-sequence sickness. Similar symptoms, but it feels very different. This arrives in escalating waves, which keep getting more intense over time. It's been particularly rough today. How have you dealt with it? Brad asked. I haven't. It's been releasing in explosive fits. Then it starts building up again in the background. Have you tried opposite association exercises? I don't know what that is, so no. It's super easy. One of your form, a Buddhist monk, taught it to me. Subconsciously, your brain gets locked in a cycle, reliving an experience and analyzing it over and over in different ways. Sounds familiar, Marcus lamented. To break the cycle, you need to find a different thought. The best one is the furthest from it, like two opposite electrical charges. How do you find the opposite thought? Searching for it is the exercise. Picture your anxiety. What's an opposite that comes to mind? Anthony, Marcus answered without hesitation. Why Anthony? He can get me to laugh about anything. Give me an example where this happened. Marcus dug deep. The summer before my parents died, we went to Zion. It's a national park in the southern part of Utah. I know it well. I was so excited to see the red rocks. My dad got the idea to drive there in the dead of the night so the roads would be clear. I was complaining about being uncomfortable, and my dad snapped. He started screaming about respect and authority, using a metaphor from the movie Top Gun. Seen it? I could tell you, but then I'd have to kill you. Marcus's smile kept growing. Remember the scene where Maverick tells Iceman to break right? Oh yeah. My dad compared my complaining to a hypothetical situation where Iceman didn't listen and died. That's crazy, right? Crazy, but not insane. Exactly, Marcus exclaimed. I can still remember how upset I was. I couldn't go back to sleep. My physical discomfort just fueled the fire. About midway through the drive, my dad asked Anthony to put on a Beatles playlist. In the middle of it, probably 5 or 6 songs deep, a screaming voice tore through the darkness. My mother shot from her sleep and started speaking in Italian. When I looked at Anthony, he was beaming. He'd added a metal song to the middle of the mix. I remember feeling transformed. I couldn't hold on to my anger anymore. He's always been able to do that for me. How was the rest of your Zion adventure? Perfect. We had rooms along the river. I saw petroglyphs and tried to catch lizards while we hiked. I think it may have been the best vacation we did as a family. Top 3 without a doubt. Zion is a magical place. I've studied it for its geography. It's an anomaly on your planet for its long geological stability. The petroglyphs you saw were a message from a very distant past. They looked like people with jetpacks, like from those ancient alien astronaut shows that Jordan loves. How'd you feel among those time-worn rocks? I remember feeling small. It's a place of extremes. Extreme size, extreme temperatures, extreme beauty. Walls jettison out of the ground and tower thousands of feet in the air. I felt like I was part of something bigger than myself, that I was safe, that I'd be okay. I'm not doing it justice. You'll have to experience it firsthand. When I'm ready for the road trip, I'll have Anthony make me a playlist. They shared their final laugh. Ready to get your hands dirty? Brad asked. Marcus nodded, then charged into the locker room. Happy Pioneer Day, Heidi greeted Marcus as he crossed the threshold into the empty shared space. How's it going? Better than you. Tough luck about last night. It looks worse than it feels, Marcus replied. That or I'm still a bit drunk, I'm not sure. Shall I fetch a cold cut of beef for your face? I'll pass. Is there anything else I can do for you today? You ask me that every time I'm here and I keep saying no. When are you going to stop asking? When you say yes, Heidi proclaimed. If I get the chance, we're on borrowed time. It's not the end of the world. Marcus let out a heavy sigh. It feels that way. We'll still see each other, I'm sure of it. Stiff upper lip and all that. What are your plans? Hattie inquired. I want to get into the agoge, but I'm not sure. I meant for today, to celebrate the holiday. Oh! I'm having a BBQ with Anthony later. If you'd like a recipe for the best beef cut you've ever tasted, let me know. You could get twice the mileage from the same piece of meat. Hattie giggled. Marcus suited up and entered the Liberty Bell. Deekshaw and Compson, two of Marcus's favorite members of the cohort, were suspended midair. He wasn't sure if they were in the same sequence or if he'd be joining them. Sharing the Liberty Bell was a necessary but not sufficient condition for going tandem. Marcus was struck by how eerie things felt. Both of the other cohort members were holding perfectly still. He'd never seen them motionless like this, though Brad said it was possible. They were frozen in another world, living a dream with no idea he had ascended beside them. Whatever sequence they were experiencing, Marcus thought. He hoped it was enjoyable. It'd be one of their last. Sequence ID number 852. Data begins. The last thing he remembered was the desperate struggle to breathe. Marcus was trapped in a narrow sandstone tunnel, his arms being smashed into his ribs by the red walls. The angle of the space was so steep that it took an enormous amount of energy to move a single inch. His heavy breathing kicked up dust, further drying out his mouth. It was unbearably hot. He was slowly suffocating, and the idea he could be stuck here forever kept Marcus on the edge of a full-blown panic attack. Something was gripping his legs. Marcus didn't know what was behind him, nor was there room to kick or turn around to see. A faint glow of light was visible at the far end of the tunnel he was entombed in. This light became his new goal. As long as he could see the luminous target, he had hope that he could survive. Inch by inch he gained ground. Eventually, Marcus was able to move one arm around his body and over his head. The serrated walls scraped off his skin, leaving behind a million razor-like grains of sand that sent pins and needles pumping down his arm and into his chest each time he pulled himself forward. He wasn't sweating anymore. He knew this was an early sign of heat stroke. Soon muscle cramps and seizures would set in. Then he'd go unconscious. Slow down. Take deep, deliberate breaths. And accept this fate, he told himself. The sunlight faded, and he saw intermittent stars transit across the small opening at the end of the tunnel. Maddening thirst demanded his attention and added to the pain of a dehydration headache, halting his movement completely. After an inadvertent bit of sleep, he woke in a state of terror. The stars had been replaced by daylight again. He thought he'd heard a voice from outside the tunnel. "Hello?" Marcus said with a crackling cry. There was no reply. "Is someone there?" Marcus pleaded. "I'm stuck! Help!" No one answered. Marcus was certain the voice had been his father's. He continued forward until he reached a space where he could free his other arm. His advance was still limited by his shoulders and legs, which dragged behind him like slabs of concrete. The heat was at its height again, but he was inches from the edge of the tunnel. After hours of strife, he reached his goal, finally pulling his head across the brink. He was staring up the face of a red cliff at clear blue sky. His brain couldn't comprehend what he was seeing, and his fatigue made finding an answer all the more difficult. Then he realized the truth. In traversing the tunnel, he'd lost track of which direction down was. Marcus spun around, a maneuver that cost him more skin on his shoulders and abdomen. His stomach sank once he'd completed the turn. He was looking down a 1,000-foot cliff, high above a river slithering like a snake through the red rock landscape. There was no way back down the tunnel. He was imprisoned on this precipice. He searched for a solution, but none came. He was exhausted, and there was nothing to hold on to around him. He prayed someone would see him, and shouted until his voice was gone. This couldn't be how it ended, he kept telling himself. Marcus remained unmoved for an entire night, and most of another day. Then, embracing the only apparent solution, he pulled himself over the edge of the tunnel and let go, beginning his destined descent toward the canyon floor. Sequence ID number 852. Data ends. Sequence ID number 928. Data begins. The last thing he remembered was finally breaking free from the suffocating confines of the putrid bathroom. His next challenge was shuffling through the dimly lit plane without bumping the shoulders of passengers sleeping in aisle seats. He was the only person still awake. The low hum of the cabin was hypnotizing, but the air was uncomfortably warm and smelled of stale sweat. Everything about the plane looked well past its expiration date. Having this many people in such a small space is unnatural, Marcus thought, jostling by incapacitated roommates to his window seat. Instability replaced his sense of calm, as if the floor would drop from beneath him. He took a deep breath to center himself, but before he could exhale or fasten his seatbelt, one of the plane's alarms blared. The wall beside him ripped away, sucking him into the nighttime abyss. The whole incident happened twice, instantly, and in slow motion, with both versions fading to black. At 35,000 feet, there was a third of the normal oxygen, and Marcus lost consciousness moments after the plane tore apart. He fell until he was below the death zone, the boundary where human brains can stay awake. As his vision came back into focus, Marcus found himself tumbling alone through the darkness. An arc of golden light stretched across the horizon, separating the endless water below from the infinite space above. The sky was clear in every direction, and the moon's reflection danced across the purple sea in a long silver beam cut by isolated mountain islands. Despite the present circumstances, Marcus felt peaceful. This was a nice place to die, he thought. As a child, someone told him that fear of death would shut down his brain, but his mind was sharper than ever. Time had slowed to a crawl. Each passing second was like a century. His life didn't flash before him in a series of visuals. Instead, it engaged all of his senses. He remembered the feeling of his mother's embrace and the rosemary scent of her shampoo. He felt the earth under his bare feet as he explored the mountains with his father. Although his mind didn't remain on any memory for more than an instant, each immersed him. How ironic, Marcus said to himself. Years ago, he'd read a popular mechanics article about consciously falling from an airplane that broke apart mid-air. He only remembered fragments of the story, including it was worse to hit water than concrete because it swallows you up even if you survive the impact, which a surprising number of people do. There was nothing but sea below. Marcus knew he had zero chance. He wasn't sure how much time was left, which liberated him from obsessing over the exact moment of his end. For now, he could enjoy being alive, surrounded by unbounded beauty. His mind wandered to the other passengers. He'd been the first one to board, and avoided eye contact with the parade of First World refugees carrying a hodgepodge of personal belongings to their temporary seats. If he'd known they were destined to die together, he'd have behaved differently. As Marcus contemplated the meaning of their shared fate, a massive explosion illuminated the night. It was the plane. The force was powerful enough to shove him across the sky, momentarily warming his exposed skin. He was naked, stripped of his clothing by the air rushing around him. As the orange ball of fire disappeared in his peripheral vision, the chill of the wind returned. Flickering scraps of metal, cloth, and plastic littered the air like confetti. It was all that remained of the other passengers. His heart ached for them, but he still had time to enjoy these fleeting moments of life. And a final wave of joy washed over him. Sequence ID number 928. Data ends. Marcus woke up next to 5 members of the cohort, 3 more than when he'd started the sequence. Like the 2 that had preceded them, all were holding uncharacteristically still. The large elliptical space was dark, and the low hum of the Liberty Bell provided a sense of momentary comfort. He searched his memory for any hint of what he'd just done, but drew an expected blank. His head, chest, and stomach were burning with pain. This had to be the peak of his anxiety, Marcus thought. It felt like waking from a nightmare as a child when fear, uncertainty, and doubt heightened the senses. He descended to the iron-red floor and shuffled toward his locker to remove the exo. A note in the locker room invited him to party with the rest of his cohort. From his conversation with Brad that morning, Marcus knew their time as a team was running out. But he had no idea they'd completed their final sequence together. Anthony was waiting, and since family came first for Marcus, he left the lab without saying goodbye. It was a hot July night, and the ground radiated as he walked off the university campus. The smell of barbecues and fire pits permeated the air, along with the muffled sounds of music. Thick gray clouds blanketed the sky now, and humidity magnified the orange sun as it slipped behind the mountains. The world seemed stable, even if he was on edge. The peace was temporary since the fireworks would begin any moment. Utah was celebrating. He couldn't shake the uneasiness. Despite taking his recent drama into account, this was worse than usual. In an attempt at self-distraction, Marcus checked his phone, but the plan backfired spectacularly. There was a bombardment of encrypted messages about the end of the world from Jordan, a threatening email from Diana CCing her lawyer, a dozen missed calls from Anthony, and a single text from Monica. He cleared the other notifications and read Monica's message. IMS, please stop ignoring me. I love you. Don't end things like this, just talk to me. Sad face. Marcus stopped and took a series of slow, deep breaths. Though the words didn't change, each reread caused a flood of different emotions to course through his veins. It had been an intense 4 months. For such a short amount of time, it felt like an eternity. The shriek of fireworks caused him to jump out of his skin. As he regained his composure, his phone rang, triggering a memory of the choices that brought him to this moment. The incessant auditory signal danced off frequency from the ringing in his ears, snapping Marcus back to the present. Hello? I'm almost to your place, Anthony said. Jordan told me what happened last night. Why aren't you returning any of my calls? I've been in the lab since the parade ended. Too much of anything is bad, Marcus. Thanks for the concern. See you in a sec. Marcus found Anthony waiting with Bucephalus. Did Jordan convince you the apocalypse is upon us? If I knew when I'd need this beast, I'd only use it then. Anthony stroked Bucephalus's hood. The IRS mileage reimbursement rate doesn't even come close to actual wear and tear. Let's go, said Marcus. Where's your stuff? Everything I need is already at Sundance. Anthony scowled. I don't want to go inside, Marcus explained. Why? Jordan will start his fire and brimstone routine again, Marcus said as he climbed into Bucephalus. I want to get to the mountains and put this week behind me. Spectacular fireworks shows were happening all across the valley as they cruised the city. I'm your brother, and I love you, so tell me, no bullshit, what's going on with you? Do I need to worry about a 2016 repeat? I think you mean a -5 NE repeat, and no. I was in a way worse place that year. This is different, I'm not that person anymore. I hope so, because back then your therapists had a shorter life expectancy than helicopter door gunners during Vietnam. A week ago, my life was looking so bright. A week ago, we were in the middle of our trek from hell. What are you talking about? It still felt better than this. Jordan said you shredded your parenting plan. Marcus rapidly replayed the confrontation in his mind. It was worse than that. I threw it in her face. Did you really threaten her? Yes. Not physically, but yes. Are you sure you're ready to fight her? I'm tired of eating her shit. Finally! Anthony slapped the steering wheel. I'm nervous. Way more than I want to admit. You should be. She's a highly intelligent, motivated, spiteful woman. History shows they're capable of anything. I said it before and I'll say it again. Watch your six. She's going to hurt you for this. As hard as she possibly can. I've seen it in her eyes. When? I took her to get coffee when you were first dating. Right after the Federation arrived. I thought Diana was the woman they warned me about at my disclosure moment. The one Heidi said would stand in your way. I'm still convinced she's the one. Diana told me about that. I knew she would. I underestimated her. I thought she was a simple gold digger, but when I tried to pay her to leave you alone, the look on her face, it gave me chills. It is what it is. That's the truth, Anthony chuckled. At least you haven't lost your sense of humor over this. If you can't laugh through this, the stress will kill me before she gets the chance. Marcus finished the sentence. How'd you know what I was going to say? Déjà vu, Marcus said, turning to gaze out the passenger window.